G'day mates, it's the Doctor here, and today we're going to tackle the subject of Yu-Gi-Oh cards receiving an errata. In case anyone doesn't know, an errata is changing the text among certain cards when they are reprinted in a particular set. Most of the time it's to word the text better with the current times of the game, but every now and then some cards will receive an errata that alters the effects of that particular card, and some fans really don't appreciate this. However, I'm likely in the minority that I'm all in favor of banned cards receiving an errata to make them more balanced. And that is what we're going to talk about today, along with some much needed problem-solving text. Starting this list off is Level Eater, a card that can revive itself in the graveyard by reducing the level of a level 5 or higher monster the owner controls. What made this card unbalanced was the fact it could be used over and over again on the same turn without a solid once per turn written into text. And that's why we see a lot of modern day cards with this text to prevent looping effects from being played. So what Konami needs to do is to add the following text: you can only use the effect of Level Eater once per turn. And I really want to see Level Eater come back because I miss the classic combo using Quick Draw Synchron to revive this little grub, then go for an instant Synchro Summon. The next card on the list is Thriller Rabka, and this might be my strangest choice because this card isn't broken, so why is Thriller Rabka here? Well, back in the day of Zexal, Mermails were one of my strongest decks, and Thriller Rabka was essentially the Necro Gardener of the deck, which came in very handy. In fact, a few months ago I defeated an Invoke deck with Mermails, and the look on the guy's face was sheer disappointment. A Mermail deck without Atlanteans? How did I lose to that? But why Thriller Rabka needs an errata is because it targets, which may not seem like a big deal, although with Blue Eyes Chaos Max, and even Cosmos appearing recently, I have to wonder, why? Why does this monster have to target? Necro Gardener doesn't target, and neither does World Legacy World Lance. Therefore, the next printing of Thriller Rabka should simply remove the targeting part of the effect, which none of this was a big deal back in the day, but today it would make all the difference. Here's another card that's in dire need of an errata, not because Topologic Trisbana is too powerful or too weak, but it's so poorly worded it must have been lost in translation as Flames of Destruction was coming out. Let's read the card together. If a monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to, banish as many of those monsters as possible. Also, as many spells and traps on the field as possible. So, hang on. Are you telling me Trisbana banishes the same number of spells and traps as the number of monsters summoned to its arrows? And before anyone tells me that Trisbana banishes all back row cards in the anime, when I asked the judge how this card should work, even he admitted it was poorly worded, but concluded his decision that it must be equal to the same number of monsters summoned to its arrows. So it begs the question, why would anyone summon this one card to then special summon another monster, only to banish that monster to banish one back row card? The text on Topologic Trisbana should read, when a card is special summoned to a zone this card points to, banish that monster and all spells and traps on the field. And also inflict 500 damage for each one, not just your opponent's, because you're sacrificing your own spells and traps, which can be very costly. I know a lot of people watching this video are likely to be expecting a bunch of banned cards on here, so let's talk about 4 cards at once. And those are the Elemental Dragons. Remember when these guys completely shattered the format with the Chaos Dragon structure deck? And these days with Thunder Dragons, there is no way taking these cards off the list right now will create a healthy competition. So this might be my most controversial errata, but I believe none of the Elemental Dragons should banish or discard other dragons. Instead, they should each banish or discard other monsters of a respective attribute. For example, Tempest in a Harpy Lady deck, Tidal in a Mermail deck, Blaster in a Salamangreat deck, and Redox in a Goki deck. As it is right now, I don't think anyone will want to see these guys come off with Chaos Dragons making a resurgence as Thunder Dragons. But I think this idea will definitely make elemental dragons more accepted by the community if they worked in other decks that did not involve dragons. Another card that is in dire need of problem-solving text is Snow, Unlight of Dark World. The way Dark Worlds usually work is if they are discarded by a card effect, then one effect goes off, but if they are discarded by an opponent's card effect, then an additional effect goes off. The problem with Snow is there is no way of telling the correct order of these effects because that is how poorly worded it is. Even I was confused back when the Dark World structure deck came out. And the worst part is, this is the searcher for the archetype. And that is why Snow desperately needs an Errata because it is one of the key components for Dark Worlds. Coming closer to the end is Catabelpus and the Witch of Fate. This is a unique case because it isn't just worded poorly, but with the recent support for Fortune Ladies and signs the archetype as a whole is going to be reprinted soon, Catabelpus is potentially broken. First of all, this card fails to mention whether it targets or not, and if it doesn't, then that would make me kind of jealous in all honesty. But it also fails to mention if it's a quick effect or not. And lastly, because it doesn't say it is a solid once per turn effect, if the owner manages to dump a bunch of Fortune Ladies into the graveyard, this monster will keep blasting your opponent's special summoned monsters without a second thought. But at the same time, if this card is reprinted along with the Fortune Ladies without an Errata, then Fortune Ladies might just have the best archetype comeback since Cyber Dragons. If you know the other support cards work well enough within the Fortune Lady archetype. But here we are at number 1 for the most necessary card that needs an Errata right now. No surprise to anyone, it is the signature card of this generation, Firewall Dragon. I'm not going to go into depth with Firewall's lack of presence in the anime because I plan on making a video dedicated to that issue in the near future. So, in the real world, was Firewall Dragon a problem for tournaments? Yes. Did it deserve to be banned? Absolutely not. Instead, Firewall Dragon should have received an Errata to fix the issues that spawned around it. Some people say it should only be summoned by Cybers monsters, but looking through the other signature cards, they're all generic in their own right, so I doubt it, but then again, who predicted a signature card ever getting banned? What Firewall Dragon needs to say is you can only control one Firewall Dragon on the field. That's why this card was limited on the same year it came out. But the second effect is what meta players really took advantage of that led to the banning of this card. Therefore the text should also say you can only use both effects of Firewall Dragon once whilst face up on the field. And thus, the degenerate strategies around this card will be non-existent, and Firewall Dragon can return to the game and anime before this generation of Yu-Gi-Oh! Comes to an end. Thank you all for watching this video, and please tell me what you think of this list, and share the video with your mates that also play Yu-Gi-Oh! And see what they think. Also, are there any cards that you can think of that need an Errata, whether they are too powerful or need a little upgrade? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, take care, mates.